Welcome to Dorset. Today we're in the forest and we're on the wild garlic trail. Great to see you all again. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're out and we've got a beautiful forest full of wild garlic here. It's absolutely spectacular and the smell is like nothing you've ever smelt before. It's just incredible. It's not fully flowering at the moment. It's close, but it's not quite there. I shot this wood last year. Just as soon as we finished lockdown, I came out and I've got some really nicely sort of well covered areas here, but it's not quite the same yet. And I can see looking around, there's still a fair few flowers budding. But the problem that we've got is over the next 4 or 5 days, we've got some really heavy high winds, lots and lots of rain, and it's not really going to be ideal for me to shoot. So I thought I'm going to come here now rather than risk it and see some of this garlic spoil. I thought I'll get it now. It's still got a good covering and hopefully we'll get a reasonable image or two out of it at the end. In terms of conditions today, we've got something that's quite ideal really. We've got a fairly clear sky out there, and what that's going to do, it's going to allow the light to come through and light up our forest subject here. But also we've got a little bit of cloud just floating past every now and then. And as that goes in front of the sun, we'll be able to get those shots that, you know, just a little bit too contrasty without any hot spots or things like that in there, where you've got dappled light. We should be able to get a nice, really even exposure. So hopefully we should get the best of both worlds today. It actually looks like it's going to be a reasonable sunset, but to be fair, I'm not here for sunset. I'm here, you know, probably just to shoot the golden hour, and then maybe if there's a chance, I'll disappear off somewhere else and try and get something different. One of the things that I found from experience with shooting these particular woods is you can just never have enough focal lengths with you. I tend to, you know, shoot something like a wide angle for certain shots if I want to get the path, you know, very low, nice and wide. But then equally, I'm going to shoot on a 100 to 400 and condense right down so I can get that path and get the lead sort of right in. I'm also going to be able to play around a lot with apertures, and I might go onto a, you know, quite a wide open aperture on the long focal length to give me a real sort of nice defined area of focus and sharpness on the shot, but then letting it fall right off as it goes out into the back of the shot. Or equally, I might focus further into the back and let the front be sort of quite blurred and just you know, give that kind of dreamy effect to the forest. It's all a case of sort of playing around and everything. One thing we will be doing today is we've got a little bit of wind in the forest, and you know, there's not a lot we can do with that. But we're going to shoot on some higher ISOs because we will be shooting, you know, sort of quite a narrow aperture, so we're going to need to speed up that shutter speed a little bit. So we're going to do some higher ISOs, and I wanted to make the point here with high ISOs is don't be afraid of them. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to shoot at something like 1,000, maybe even 2,000 ISO, and it never really causes any real serious degradation to the picture, even when it's blown up to something like an A2 size. You have to sort of trust in your camera, and sensors these days are so good that, you know, noise, obviously it's still there and you can still see it, but it really won't impair the picture. And just try and not shy away from it if it's something that will benefit you and get that shutter speed that you want. You know, don't be afraid to ramp the ISO up. I know plenty of people who shoot way higher than even 2,000 ISO, and they still get some amazing results. So don't be shy with that ISO. Wild garlic is an absolutely amazing subject to shoot because it's so prolific and it grows in such vast areas. And the reason it does this is because the wild garlic itself, it spreads out and it just covers the floor and it stops any other flowers from sort of growing up whilst it's there. So it just absolutely owns the forest floor and takes over. But the garlic itself, I mean, it has a really sort of interesting side to it because you can actually eat every part of the plant, the flower, the stem, the leaf, the bulb, and it's, you know, rumoured to have many sort of healing properties. And if you look back through sort of medical history, you can actually find that there's pretty much no disease that wild garlic wasn't a supposed remedy for. So it does have a real good history. In terms of finding forests with wild garlic, they're fairly simple to do, really. I mean, to be honest, follow your nose. You can smell them a mile off. It really is, you know, a really pungent smell, and you know, it's absolutely beautiful, but you can certainly smell them from a great distance away. But their preferred habitat is nice shaded woodland, and it has to be usually quite damp inside as well. Therefore, sort of hillside woodlands are very, very good for wild garlic, simply because as the water runs down all of these hills, it sort of collects and pools all the way down. It's just a natural area for it to stay really sort of, you know, a little bit muddy and boggy, and these flowers, they absolutely thrive in that environment. So it's well worth checking out hillsides and somewhere shaded, somewhere that's a little bit damp as well. Obviously, it's not exclusive to hillsides. There's many woodlands which are just completely flat and they've got beautiful wild garlic paths that go all the way through them. But for me, the hillsides, they just offer something a little bit, you know, better in the shot. I like the fact that it's not an even horizon. I find that quite fascinating in the picture. It almost pulls me straight into the picture, just looking at these big slanted horizons, but usually with you know, a straight path and obviously straight trees. But as you'll find in a lot of these forests, they do tend to sort of grow at slightly unique angles in here. But it's a particularly good forest, this one. It's full of lots of different types of trees. As you come in, you've got oak, you've got beech trees in here, pine trees, there's even some sycamores I've seen in here, some horse chestnut, and it really is an interesting wood because there's lots and lots of variety of trees, and you know, lots of sort of nice twisted gnarly old oaks, as well as, you know, tall straight birches. So there's a good bit of character and you can go after that. So I try and incorporate a few of those into the shot. But as we get further up into this forest, it does become predominantly sort of more beech trees than anything here. So you know, it's nice to have a bit of uniformity, but we might experiment with some of those gnarly old oaks later on and try and, you know, check out a few. Anyway, I'm going to take a shot and see how we get on. See you in a minute. So it really does pay to vary the height of the shot that you're taking on these particular ones. There's a lot to be said for getting down nice and low, especially for wide angle shots. But on the sort of shots where you're using a telephoto and looking down, I tend to prefer to get a lot higher up. But again, these are very, very sort of hardy plants, but it doesn't do to trample them, and we certainly don't want to do that. So I'm going to look for sort of natural paths and anywhere that I can stand where I'm not actually interfering with the wild garlic itself, because we need to protect it. Even though people forage these things, it's you know, something that as photographers we just owe it to the forest to do, really. So yeah, starting off nice and low, fairly wide angle. Going to use this path as a beautiful lead line all the way down, and we've got a nice bit of dappled light just in front as well. So I'm going to get on and take this shot. Now, the reason that we're shooting on such a narrow aperture here of f/16 is because we really want to try and get everything in focus from the front of the scene to the back of the scene. Of course, you can focus stack and you can use a much wider aperture if you want to do that and have individual frames, but we're trying to catch a single frame here, and for me the best way is to shoot at around f16. As I said earlier on, we're shooting at currently ISO 200 just to combat that little bit of sort of breeziness that we've got going on there, and because we're using a very narrow aperture, obviously our exposure time is a little bit longer, and we've got a polarizer on as well just to take off any glare. So ideally, like I say, 200 is ideal for the aperture, for the ISO for this particular shot, and should give us a nice scene without any sort of wind movement in there. I think, to be fair, the only way that I could really nail this shot exactly as I'd want it would mean trampling through all of this wild garlic just to get a little bit further up. I'm just not prepared to do it. I've said before, no shot is worth destroying nature for, just to get to it. But I think we've got a reasonable shot. The sun's really coming down quite quickly now. It's going to have to work fast in order to make the most of this light. It's a funny one in this forest. I mean, if the sunset is at, for argument's sake, 10 to 9, the light will be totally devoid by about 20 past 8. It just disappears. Once it gets just below a certain line of that canopy, it just blocks everything out. So really have got to work quick if we're going to make anything of this one. We've just had a lovely bit of light come out just behind me here, and it's just beaming into the forest. So I'm going to quickly try and get a few snaps down here and zoom in close to some of these bits of wild garlic and see if we can get those really nice glowing tips of the white flower in there in the foreground. Well, the light's pretty much left us now. The sun's probably about a good maybe 20-30 minutes from setting, but inside the forest the canopy is king and it takes over, and yeah, we're not going to get any more decent light in here. We've got a little fraction right at the very end, so I'm really pleased that we actually caught some. It's been an interesting shoot. I don't think the pictures will be the best ones that I've ever taken, but it's just been a really nice trip out, and I thoroughly enjoyed the forest, as I always do. I find forest shooting very challenging, but at the same time, you get so much out of it, and it's just worth trying and keep going, and eventually it will come. It's very frustrating when you watch the likes of people like Simon Baxter, where they're just so in tune with their environment, and they can go out and what looks like a seemingly uninteresting subject they can make look absolutely amazing just like that. And we've got to sort of keep trying if we want to achieve that level, but as I say, above all, it's got to be fun, and I've thoroughly enjoyed today, so I really hope you have too. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It really does help, and it gets the video seen by a few more people, and I put lots of effort into these, so it's always nice when it gets out there. Being a fairly new person on YouTube, it's very difficult to get seen at the moment, so I really do appreciate all the support everyone gives me. If you're not a subscriber, please do consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.